Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Have you checked out Village of the Lost yet? My latest novella is available on Amazon right now, so if you're looking for a quick and creepy read this summer, go check it out. It's only 99 cents. That's Village of the Lost. And speaking of summer, this week we're going to be looking at a few tales to maybe make you think twice about your summer activities this year. Do you really know what's lurking out there in the water? Is that beach really as safe as you think it is? To start, we're heading to a deserted island that's often populated by campers and swimmers during the summer season, but there's one section of the island that's off the beaten path and sees little to no visitors. For a good reason. Find out why in Island Shrine. This happened close to 10 years ago now. I went camping with two of my friends. There was this deserted island connected to the mainland by a sandbar. It was close to home, so I often played there when I was in junior high. People often took their families to go camping on this island during the summer. There was me, a woman, and my friends A and B, both guys who had been my classmates in junior high. All three of us were 19 at the time. B had spent a year after high school studying to get into university. He was finally accepted, so all three of us were uni students. To celebrate, we decided to have a barbecue before school started. Being April, it was still a little chilly, but as long as we had a tent, we'd be fine. Numerous air raid shelters had been dug on the island, and when we were in junior high, we used to visit them for tests of courage. Whenever someone went inside, there would be talks of ghosts in uniform or young kids, but honestly, nothing ever happened, not even once. I think a single lap around the island was about 2 or 3 kilometers long. There was a path that cut straight through the island from the south to the north, as well as one that went all the way around it. The south connected to a sandy beach, while the east had a small harbour. The north and west were mostly rocks. The north end of the island was comparatively flat, so that was where we tended to hang out. The path leading around the island cut off on the west side, thanks to all of the grass, so we never went there unless we wanted to explore a little. On the day we arrived, we set up our tent on the north side of the island. We enjoyed our barbecue, and then the three of us lay down to sleep. B wanted to go out and do another test of courage, but neither A nor I could be bothered, so we ignored him. I woke up the next morning thanks to something banging. It sounded like a nail being hammered. I wanted to know what it was, but I didn't bother to go looking for the source of it. After lunch, we packed up the tent and we were walking down the path that cut through the island when we ran into a group of 5 people coming from the west. They were carrying about 20 planks of old wood and they were all in workers' clothes. They nodded in greeting at us and kept going. I turned back to the path they'd just come from, and another person was walking towards us. This person's clothing was clearly different, and he looked to be a priest or something. He walked straight for us. "Have you kids been here since yesterday?" he asked. "Yes, we were camping," A said. "I see. I think you should be okay, but if anything happens, call me." Having said that, the priest handed us his card. "Are you saying that something might happen once we get home?" A asked. "No, we're just carrying out a small ceremony right now, and we didn't think anyone would be here at this time of year." "You carry out ceremonies here?" "Yes, we pray for safety before the swimming season starts." "I see. Thanks for all your hard work," I said. "Were those people we saw helping out?" "They're from the town hall. They're just helping set up." We were satisfied with his explanation and the priest saw us off. As soon as he was gone, B immediately said he wanted to see the ceremony site. I'd played on the island ever since I was a child, so I was surprised to learn that such a place even existed. As we walked towards the west, we found the trail those men must have been using, and we found the site rather easily. Compared to other air raid shelters in the area, this one was much larger, and the hole faced the ocean rather than away from it. It must have been about 2 meters wide. Brand new planks of wood had been hammered over the hole as if to seal it. There were lots of air raid shelters that had been sealed, but this was the first one I'd seen looking this way. That must have been the sound I heard in the morning. "Ah, don't you reckon we'll be able to see inside from over there?" B said. I looked in the direction he was pointing, and there was a gap in the planks around the top left of the hole. It was too high for us to see in, so B climbed on A's shoulders to look in. "It's no good. It's pitch black. I can't see anything," B said. "Huh? What's this? Looks like there's cloth on the other side of this wood." B was leaning against the planks at the time, and then something cracked, and the top one fell off. A and B lost their balance and fell backwards. "Hey, are you okay? You're not hurt?" I asked. "Come on, dude. You gotta be careful. It was dangerous," B said. "Hey, you were the one who leaned forward and made me lose balance," A replied. At any rate, it seemed both of them were okay, and looking into the hole again, the missing plank revealed there was black cloth stuck to the other side of the planks. "This isn't normal, right?" A said. "Dude, I think we should put this back where we found it and get the hell out of here," B replied. And so the two of them started replacing the plank. This was easier said than done, as B was standing on A's shoulders and the plank was over 2 meters long. They really needed someone to brace on the other side. Looking around, there were rocks all over the beach, and it looked like we might be able to make a simple platform with them. After a few return trips, A and B made a platform about 50 centimeters high on the right side of the hole. Because of my height, I stood on A's shoulders while B held the other side of the plank. A complained that I was too heavy, but I hit him on the head a few times. As I lifted the plank to put it back in place, I noticed the cloth on the other side was starting to peel back a little. I told A and B this, and they said we should fix it first. As I pulled on the cloth to fix it, I could feel the sun's rays hitting my back as it turned west. At the same time, I could see through a small hole in the cloth. There were a terrifying amount of talismans inside. They filled the hole hanging off ropes. And then, I saw it. No doubt about it. What I saw peeking through all the talismans was a face. Like a pure white no mask. The eyes were thin and stretched out to the sides of its face. In the darkness, that white face was the only thing I could see. I couldn't tell if the eyes were black or white, but either way, our eyes met. Then its crescent-shaped mouth widened, and it grinned at me. I screamed, pushed the plank away, and then fell backwards with A. I don't remember much of what happened after that. Next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital bed. A and B thought I hit my head, so they carried me to the hospital. My parents were also there, and they had heard what happened from them. After A and B heard from the doctor that there didn't appear to be any problems, they apparently went back to the hole to finish boarding it up. They both asked me what happened when I woke up, but I didn't want to believe what I'd seen with my own 2 eyes, so I told them that I was afraid of all the talismans instead. They confirmed they saw the same talismans when they went back too. Somehow, all 3 of us managed to avoid mentioning just what that hole was. I was able to go home that same day. My parents got angry at me for acting like a child at my age. I was supposed to return to Tokyo that day, but because I hit my head and wasn't quite out of the woods yet, it was decided I would spend the night at my parents' house instead. What on earth did I see in there? Did I just see something that wasn't really there? I wanted to think that I was just imagining things, but that face I saw in broad daylight clearly lingered in my memories. I was so scared that I slept with the lights on that night. I woke up around 4 a.m. The lights were off. Somebody stood by the door. I realized I was covered in a sheen of sweat, but I could move. I wasn't frozen. I was so scared that I clenched my eyes shut. I waited for the moment to pass. Maybe it was several minutes, I don't know, but I finally made the decision to open my eyes again. The figure was gone. I rushed to turn the lights on and looked around the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nervously, I approached the door. I wanted to soothe my fears that nothing was really there. I fell down in shock. There was a small puddle of water where that figure had been standing. This was proof that someone really had been there. My mind went blank for a while. What on earth was going on? "I'm so lonely," a voice whispered in my ear. It was a woman's voice, and I realized my whole body was trembling. I screamed, but no sound came out. I got up and ran to my parents' room. "There's somebody here! Help!" I'm pretty sure I screamed something like that at my father. His expression changed and he ran to my room. My mother also woke up and held my hand. A few minutes later, he returned. "Are you okay? There was nobody there. Your room looked fine as well. Maybe they ran away." He seemed to think it was a robber or something. "No, it was a ghost. A female ghost." "A ghost? Don't be stupid." "I'm telling you the truth. I heard her voice as well, and there was a puddle." I took my father over to my room once again. He didn't believe me, but I showed him the puddle. It was still there. "See? Look! She was right here!" "You must have still been wet when you got out of the bath, that's all." Honestly, I couldn't tell left from right at that point. If it was just water from the bathtub, then sure, whatever. That was just fine. I wanted to believe that the voice I heard was just in my head as well. "Sorry for waking you up." "It's fine. I'm just glad everything's okay," my father said, and then returned to his room. I no longer felt like sleeping, so I went and laid down on the sofa. The next day, I called A. He said that nothing in particular had happened to him or B. I returned to Tokyo and, after work, went home. I debated what to do, but in the end, I turned the lights off to go to bed. But that night, I had trouble sleeping. Out of options, I turned on the TV to watch some late-night television shopping. Around the time I started to feel sleepy, I saw a woman standing next to my TV set. It was so sudden. She stood there frozen, looking down at the ground. She had short hair in a bob cut and wore jeans and a t-shirt. Her face was mostly hidden behind her hair, so I couldn't see it. I was unable to move as we faced off. They were talking about something oddly cheerful on the shopping program, and when I blinked, the woman disappeared and left another puddle behind. I ran out of the room and called A for help. "A? I'm sorry for calling so late, but I saw that ghost again." I was being for real, but I didn't think he would believe me. "Are you serious? I'm coming over now. Your Tokyo apartment, right?" "Yeah, but I'm gonna go to the nearby convenience store, so meet me there." A lived about a 30-minute drive from my apartment, but he came right away. I told him what happened, and he went to check himself. The puddle was still there. He went to clean it up, but it grossed him out, so he couldn't. "You need to be purified." "Yeah, I know. But where should I go?" "Well, what about the priest who gave us his card?" "Oh yeah! He might know something about what's going on. We waited for morning to arrive at a nearby family restaurant, and then A called the number on the card. Hello? Is this H-san? We're the students you met at Marumaru Island the other day. Well, it turns out we have a bit of a problem. He seemed to understand what was going on right away and asked us to come and see him immediately. I had no idea I'd be going back home again only 2 days after leaving. A drove me to the address listed on the card. The priest came out to greet us when we arrived shortly after 2 p.m. He wore normal clothes and looked like a kind, slightly chubby old man. I told him everything that had happened, even regarding the plank that came off. Ah, well, we have to deal with that first. Please wait a moment. Having said that, he put out some tea for us and then left the house. A and I waited, no idea what was going on. Over an hour later, the priest returned. Sorry to keep you waiting. Everything over there seems okay now. So, that just leaves you. I'm sorry, but what on earth is that cave? I asked. Alright, let me explain it all together. Things will make sense then. This is what he told us. First, our hometown was sandwiched between mountains in the east and west. Each of those mountains was protected by a strong kami-sama. That was why, long ago, various spirits and such used our spiritually weak town as a pathway. But then one day, flood control works began to stop the nearby river from flooding our town, and a shrine was built to the water kami-sama upstream. As a result, spirits were no longer able to pass through and got stuck in our town. And so, they built the cave on the island. Or, to put it more correctly, shrine. They used it to cut the flow of spirits so that they wouldn't enter town. But that wasn't the end of the story. Following that, the towns in the surrounding mountains started to fall victim to various illnesses and unfortunate events as well. So what did they do? They sealed the shrine on the island, and then moved the shrine that was upstream as well. They returned the spirit path to what it was formerly. But although the island shrine was sealed, it still remained. The power to repel spirits remained, and yet at the same time, it controlled them as well. It was a strange situation, and this instability caused the area around the island to stagnate and trap spirits there. According to the priest, it would be easy to understand by imagining the current flowing from the west side of the island and creating a whirlpool around it. And so, he said, that I must have picked up a spirit from there. That day we were there, he was praying for the safety of the upcoming swimming season, and because of that, he opened the shrine briefly to let some of the stress out. He said that us ripping the plank off wasn't such a big problem either, but he didn't know anything about that white face I saw that time. He went to check the plank, however, because although we said we fixed it, it could cause problems if it wasn't properly sealed. Then he got to the problem at hand, whether he could cleanse me of the spirit haunting me. First, let's give it a try, he said. Will this cost anything? I asked. It's partly my fault, so it's fine. Don't worry. Then he led me to another room. It was wooden with a gorgeous kamidana inside. The priest got changed and then came back carrying a stick with pieces of white paper on the end of it. He waved it in front of me, muttering something. After a short while, he then said, dripping in sweat, "Let's think of a way to make her an offering." I had no idea what he meant. I think I may be able to exorcise her, but I think it would be better to appease her instead. My guess is that she came here from the Sanin region, maybe from the Maru area. So let's think of how we can make her an offering. You couldn't exorcise her? How are we supposed to make an offering if we don't know the exact location? A asked. I understand that you are afraid of spirits, but she will not harm you. As such, don't you think it would be better to take some time and do things the safe way? Would a purification be dangerous? I asked. There are risks, yes, the priest answered. Okay, so then we just need to go to Maru in the Sanin region, right? Eh? Are you really gonna go? A asked. I mean, what else can I do? Either way, I was glad we had finally found a solution, because there was nothing else I could do. The next day, I got on a train heading towards the Sanin region. The priest sadly didn't join me. I did ask him, but he was unable to come. He told me I could call him any time, however. A thankfully did come along, and that made me feel better. When we arrived at our destination, a horrible feeling ran through my entire body. I dropped to the ground and threw up. It was already after 7 p.m, so we went straight to the hotel. We asked at the front desk about any nearby shrines or temples, and they told us there was a large temple nearby. I think that from here was the really important part, but I honestly don't remember that well. A went around gathering information on temples and sacred places for me. I had reached my mental limits and could barely even sleep, so all I did was tag along as A did all the work. Every now and then that woman appeared again, driving me further against the wall. We had no clues to work with whatsoever, but I felt that if we could find that place, then I'd know what to do. That was what I felt when I got there. We arrived at Sea Temple after visiting every Buddhist temple in the area for the past 5 days. I still remember how I felt when we got there. Ah, this is the place. Despite how lethargic I felt, I stormed past A and into the temple. Excuse me, hello? Hello, welcome, a monk answered. I began. Oh, you must really be struggling with this, the monk said. Eh? You know? Hope suddenly flared up within me. He really might be able to help me. First, let's sit down and have a chat, he said, and then guided us further into the temple. He led us to a small wooden room and then put out some tea. I spoke in detail about what happened to me, but unfortunately, the monk didn't know anything about the woman haunting me. I could feel all the energy drain from my body as I realized that we were back to square one. The look on the monk's face also suggested that something about the story made him uncomfortable. Last year, we held a burning ceremony for items given to us from various houses. Maybe it has something to do with that. Please take me there, please. The monk led us to an empty space on the temple grounds. There was nothing there. It was simply an empty lot. We burned them here. What did you do with the remains? I asked. We then buried the ashes. Can I dig them up? Sure. Here's what I did next. Apparently, when people are driven into a corner, they're no longer able to make the right decisions. I started digging the ground up with my bare hands, like a madman. A quickly stopped me, and then the monk brought over a shovel. My nails were broken and bleeding, but I didn't care. I pulled out a few pieces of wood from the buried ashes. There was a scrap of cloth as well. I didn't know why, but I knew that was it. Honestly, I was at my limit, both mentally and physically. It was especially bad because I thought everything had been solved, but then it turned out we didn't know anything. I just didn't care anymore. Even if I was wrong and there were risks involved, I didn't care. I just wanted the priest to cleanse me. Then we took the pieces of wood and cloth back with us to return home. As we were leaving, the monk told us to come back and see him if anything happened. On the train back, I was able to sleep for the first time in a long time, and the next day, we visited the priest's house. "I think this is it," I said, and showed the wood to the priest. He stared at it carefully, and then said just one thing. "Well done." Once again he led me to another room and sat opposite me whilst lighting a fire. He didn't bring the stick with the paper on it this time. He put the piece of wood on a wooden stand and started muttering something. I just watched as he carried out the ritual. "Are you stupid?" the priest said in a small voice, but that was what it sounded like. My stomach started to hurt badly as I watched him, but he continued to look at the ground as he recited something. The priest's voice stopped. There was a long silence. "Hey." His tone of voice was clearly different as he spoke to me. Then he looked up and grinned. "Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Are you stupid?" The priest's face twisted and warped like the no mask. I just sat there and cried, tears streaming down my face. With a small leap, the priest left the room, and I saw that the woman was standing in the corner. "Oh, come on! What do you want? Just leave me alone already, please!" I turned towards the woman and screamed. A, realizing something was wrong, came running into the room. "A, over there! You can see her, right?" A turned to look in the woman's direction. "Eh? Ah? Eh? Ah?" He was clearly confused. Seemed he could see her as well. "The priest! Where is he? Where did he go?" A asked. I grabbed his hand without answering, and we ran out of the room. The woman continued to stand in the corner of the room and didn't move. We got in the car and left right away, heading to a family restaurant a fair distance from the priest's house. I continued crying for a while, and A called B. Several hours later, B arrived at the restaurant. After I calmed down, I told the both of them about the priest and that no mask I saw in the cave. A's face was white, even though he'd only seen the woman. "First of all, we should go see the priest again," B said. "Huh? I don't think that's a good idea. It's dangerous," A replied. "It's fine. The two of you can wait here." B then called several of his friends back home. "Alright, I'll be back," he said, and left the restaurant. We waited for him to contact us, and a short while later, he did. He told us he was at the place we told him, but there was no house there. "There's no way," A said, but it seemed he really couldn't find it. We made up our minds and decided to go back. "It's around here, right?" B said. "Yeah, that's right." "Huh? What the? It's gone!" "No way, I mean, it was right here. This is the right address." The place where the priest's house should have been was just an abandoned building. It clearly looked different to the house we'd seen, and it appeared nobody had lived in it for several years, at least. "B, I asked some of the neighbours and they said there's no house around here like that." D, one of B's friends, said. He had gathered 5 of his friends and they were asking people around the neighbourhood questions. "Alright, thanks. Let's call it a night for now. Sorry." "We'll look into it a little more," D said, and then B's friends all got in their cars and left. I had no idea what was going on anymore, nor what I should do, so I collapsed to my knees on the ground. I can't do this anymore. I sat there and cried like a spoilt child. A and B tried to cheer me up and then the two started talking. "We should head back to Maru 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 again," A said. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing, but it was so far away and I didn't want to go back alone. I didn't think A would want to go back again either, so I said nothing. But then they both agreed to go. I was happy. After that, A and B took turns driving, and it took us a full day to reach Maru 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 again. The first place we went to was Sea Temple. We arrived after lunchtime, and the monk seemed to be waiting for us out the front. "Hello," he said. Yeah, so it didn't work. It's all right. Let's go inside and have another chat." He looked at me with kind eyes. "And you as well, huh?" the monk said, looking at B. B suddenly looked surprised and then quietly nodded. We had no idea that B was being haunted as well. He knew that A and I were struggling, so he apparently thought that he would try to deal with it himself. The monk said he didn't know if the woman haunting me had anything to do with this place, but if I truly felt that way, then maybe it was true. Then he said we should start exorcising her immediately, and he started chanting. Somehow, my body felt lighter. He told me that the woman didn't possess any strong malice towards me to begin with, so I should be fine. I was so happy that I started crying and collapsed to the floor. After that, the problem was B, whose spirit was a little more tricky. In the end, he had to spend several months at the temple. Oh yeah, and both of us had to pay for the exorcism, haha. Finally, I asked him about those no masks I saw. The monk said he didn't know much about that, but they probably weren't possessed. Perhaps it was a yokai or a local kami-sama or something. He also said the story the no mask told me about the spirit path, while under the guise of the priest, was probably true. Whatever the reason, the mask must have been in that area since long, long ago. Whether it was a different form of the thing worshipped in the shrine or whether it was related to the water kami-sama upstream, he didn't know. But either way, it would be best not to get involved with it any further. He also said there might be some elderly people in that region who might know something about it. Several days later, A and I returned to Tokyo, while B stayed at the temple. Nothing supernatural happened to me after that, and I'm still good friends with both A and B. When B returned from the temple, he even brought a girlfriend back with him. A few years later, they got married, and now they have 2 kids. I don't know much about A, but either way, he's still single. I'm also single, but luckily I'm healthy and have no other problems. Actually, there were a few things I later heard from B about his experiences, but I'll leave that for another time. Alright, so here's what happened to B. One night, when he was sitting on his bed, he realized his feet felt cold. When he looked down, he saw they were wet. Another time, when he was washing his hands in the bathroom and looked up in the mirror, he saw a child behind him. But when he turned around, nobody was there. He also heard a child's laughter several times, but whenever he looked around, he couldn't find anyone. He also had dreams about a boy's face caving in as he clung to him, and even after visiting a temple to be exorcised, little changed. He thought that worrying about it would be a lost cause, so he tried to ignore it. But then a few days later, he got the call from A to come and see us. It seemed that the spirit haunting B was that of a small boy. This spirit was even older than the woman haunting me, and so there was no easy way to exorcise him. The monk said that B would have to live at the temple for a while and wait for the connection between him and the small boy's spirit to fade. And so, B ended up spending quite some time there, and even now, he still goes back to visit once a year. As I said earlier, I still don't really understand the connection between the priest, the no mask, the woman's spirit, and the little boy. I just wrote down everything as it happened. It wasn't like I was trying to build something for a later reveal like a novel. But I would like to add that D, B's friend, did some research of his own after that, so I'd like to give you my interpretation based on those facts. According to Dee, the day after we went camping and saw the workers from town, they were indeed changing the planks of wood covering the cave entrance, but no priest had been invited. The town changes the wood once every few years, apparently because people kept illegally dumping glass and other such things inside, making it dangerous. He was unable to find out anything about talismans being in there or not though. The Shinto priest's house that A and I visited didn't exist, and that lot had been empty for several years. There was, however, a shrine built upstream to pray for the safety of the waterworks construction, and apparently the cave on the island had been there since long before that. Long ago, people used it to pray for the safe return of fishermen, but shortly after the war, it was boarded up. Some of the elderly people in town knew of the cave's existence, but they didn't know why it was there or why it was boarded up. I had the business card the Shinto priest gave me burned at Sea Temple. I briefly wondered if I could still get through on the phone number listed, but I didn't want anything else to do with the situation, so I had it burned. Lastly, let me tell you what I think. Including what the monk from Sea Temple told us, I think that the priest never actually existed, and the thing with the no mask just took that appearance on to show itself to us. As for when it kept saying, "Are you stupid?" I felt intense malice and hatred coming from it at that time, so I think it was laughing at us, like, "You're stupid to even try and stop all this." I think it was enjoying driving me into a corner, maybe hoping that I would lose all hope and die or something. I don't know why the timing worked out so great on the spirits that possess B and I, but maybe the no mask was actually able to control all types of spirits, and that was how they ended up haunting us. The monk at Sea Temple even said the connection between me and the spirit of the woman haunting me was rather weak. I believe that the no mask was the changed form of something that was revered on that island. In hindsight, I think it was unhappy with the spirit path being closed off when it was telling us about the shrine on the island. I have no idea why it went to such lengths to play a trick on us though. There are some things in this world that you're just not supposed to touch, but like a car accident, they can come at you out of nowhere. That's what I think, anyway. If you ever visit a beach and wonder why you only see tourists and never any locals in the water, well, there might be a good reason for that. Find out why in Sea Seeking a Sacrifice. A certain town along the coast was introduced in a magazine, and after that, numerous tourists from all over visited the town to go swimming. The beach was beautiful and litter-free, the waves calm, and each year it filled with families visiting the area to swim. But strangely, the people of that town never went swimming there. Sure, the place was packed with people, but still, there wasn't a single local enjoying the water. Instead, they would swim there only during the end of the rainy season and just before the summer holidays started. A young man who visited the area to go swimming during summer thought that maybe the locals relinquished the beach to tourists during the popular season, but according to a local, that wasn't it at all. The man started by revealing that each and every year, a single swimmer died whilst out in the water. It might sound a little rude to say out loud, but also not surprising since every year during the summer there were news reports of people drowning while swimming in the sea. However, the man emphasized the one swimmer part. Yes, each and every year, one swimmer drowned, and this was always at the start of August. Apparently, there was an evil kami-sama in the sea, and if it did not receive a sacrifice each year, then it would cause a large tsunami that would devastate the area. As such, the town would offer a sacrifice each year, but then one year, the beach was overflowing with tourists, and so they decided to let the sacrifice be chosen from amongst them. That kami-sama appears at the start of August, and so the locals make sure to enjoy swimming before that time comes. And finally, our last story for this week is a reminder to pay attention to closed beach signs. They exist for a very good reason, but those reasons may be a little different than what you're expecting. Find out why in The Day You Mustn't Go Swimming at the Beach. There was a town with a beautiful swimming beach, and during the summer holidays, it filled with tourists. But there was one day a year when nobody would go near that beach. On this particular day, several decades earlier, a group of elementary school students from a seaside school visited that beach to go swimming. However, one of the students drowned. He was later found in a cave close to the beach. You could walk to this cave during low tide, but at high tide, it filled with water. The boy couldn't swim, so as the cave filled in with water, he ran further inside, and then, because it kept filling with water, he eventually drowned. But surprisingly, no one was aware that he was even missing until his body was discovered. Roll call was of course carried out, but neither the teacher nor the other students noticed he wasn't there. But there was a reason for that. The boy was being bullied. These bullies would pretend to be him during roll call, and because this group of bullies were his roommates, nobody complained about his absence. The bullies forced him into the cave, knocked him out, and then left him there. The police uncovered all of this, yet none of the bullies were ever charged. Then, every year after that, on the anniversary of the boy's death, somebody would go missing from the beach. They would always be found dead, having drowned, but the place of death varied. The one thing they all shared in common, however, was that nobody noticed the dead person was missing on the day it happened. The next day, the people with that person would suddenly realize they were missing, and when they set out to find them, they would find them dead, having drowned. Some people would still be awake as the clock struck midnight, chatting at a nearby inn, and as soon as the date changed, they would realize their friend was missing and start a search. But even during these times, the person would always be found dead. Because these people drowned and because nobody noticed until the following day, rumors started to spread that the boy who died in the cave was angry and had cursed them. As such, people stopped going near the water on that particular day. In order to stop people from outside the city swimming on this day, the city officially closed the beach to swimmers on this day, and this day only. Don't forget to check out Village of the Lost, available on Amazon right now, and our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.